through the bad ways of doing backend, at least your backend server for this, at least for whatever time this is going for.
I see.
I might keep it a buck. Package application store.
Should I put all my HTML stuff inside the public folder?
I forgot what your file structure looked like already.
I don't have a public folder.
I don't know what that means. I haven't seen it. Yeah, your front end,
Oh.
your front end is already inside the. I mean, your front end is already a folder by itself, so it's fine. Although you should probably separate your CSS, JavaScript, and HTML.
Oh yeah, I
files.
separated those, but that's about it. So basically,
Technically, that whole thing is public, so it's fine.
also everything. Like,
Okay, so you're using an Express server. If you're using Express server to host it, right?
yeah.
Wait, where's your? Look at your new screenshot. Yeah, so you have app.js here. So yeah, put everything into a public folder, so you know that the entire folder will be exposed to the web. Yeah, so all your CSS, JavaScript, and HTML, you would just put it inside the public folder.
Then the app.js is you just
Outside.
leave it there.
Yeah, app.js is outside. Your npm, your package file should be outside as well.
I haven't done any of the npm shit yet.
So what would you be doing if it was a bad example? Can you wait? Can you take a screenshot of the assignment one?
Assignment 1.
Yeah. Or maybe I can. Oh, it's kind of hard. I want to get a feeling of how your assignment one looks like. Actually, no, it's fine. I can probably just look at your previous screenshot.
Actually, I can share my screen.
Okay.
Ah.
It's weird because in streamer mode, Discord doesn't have any notification sounds. Okay, open this in VS Code instead. I can see the whole file structure. Oh. Man, I really feel sad for you guys that have to use laptops.
It's alright. It could be a lot worse.
Well, yeah. But, no, because you guys are running Windows on top of this. Like, if you're running Linux, right, it'll still be fine. Like, my laptop can, like, breathe very smoothly and everything runs really fast.
I mean, why is this not taking? Oh yeah, my screen share. Anyway,
Controller, model, server.js. Can you open your server.js file? Oh no.
is this bad?
You know, I saw this with Hangul's one as well as
Oh yeah, follow my teachers.
Etang's one as well.
Is this not good? Is this no good?
I can't say for sure until I hear the teacher's reasoning behind why they did this instead of the other way.
I
This
see.
this wasn't even the one they taught us last time.
Then how did they teach you? Oh what? I don't need to know that.
I guess maybe because my lecturer was was Glenn, so maybe
I don't know who that
he
is.
knew he at least has his hit. I mean, at least he knows what he's doing.
Hmm.
You might keep it
And
a buck.
supposedly all our lecturers should know what they're doing.
You say that like it's supposed to be the case.
Should be, it should be.
Then why are we paying SP money? It's because they have to be bad. Yeah, I probably shouldn't
What?
be saying this.
That makes no
It's fine.
sense.
It's fine. No one's gonna watch the live stream anyway.
I am going to. I'm gonna send it in Discord to everyone.
I'm sure it's live, right? Yeah, it's live. Am I
But on
live?
YouTube.
Yeah.
Are you live? Hi chat or what?
Yo,
Or something. I
what's
don't
up,
know.
guys?
Uh,
How do I go to my own stream? Man, I really wish I knew how this whole YouTube thing worked.
I didn't know you went live already. Lamar.
Am I
But on
live?
YouTube.
Yeah.
Are you live?
Like be the stream. Okay. Okay. I got an idea of how it kinda works. You have a controller, you have a model. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, what else do you guys have? Let me take a look.
I'm gonna go look at your. Wait. Where's your app.js? Ah, I see.
I'll explain the
Okay.
process. I wanna, because I'm trying to replicate your guys, what you guys learned first.
Is it? I just stole all your TeachBED, your front end server. I just copy pasted it.
Can. Although you need the
It works.
corresponding
So
libraries. Okay, open your backend. Okay, I'll
this
take a look at it. Okay, so controller models.
this is just my assignment one copy pasted over.
Okay. Okay. Man, I wish I had like Etung's or Penguins to reference.
No. You sleep already?
Etung probably went to sleep already.
Ryan's awake.
But Ryan doesn't do backend. He's on his phone as well.
Etong. You online? Is he online? No, he's not.
Maybe if I can take a look at other either sales or someone else's. I gotta remember I'm streaming, so I can't just drag everything to my main screen. And the first, oh, it's a good thing this is video, so like people can just skip to and it actually matters. Front end web development CA2. Nope, it's not the one. Crap. Problem is because no one in our cohort really uses Git, so it's very hard to find people.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to find, like, examples of their repos and stuff.
I mean, I use Git, but I don't use Git.
I mean, at least like commit, like the initial commit, I just hosted there. 208 commits in July alone. July is not even done yet. I'm scared.
God.
Sometimes I look at my contributions, I wonder how I got here. Man, I was so proud of my first 100 commits, man. I was like, look, I'm coding. Okay. Yep, that's. I guess I can't find any. Shit, let me look at mine. I need to ask you guys what you guys are doing. Database. You guys haven't used middlewares yet, right?
We have actually. That's the bloody password.
Can you go through your tutorial? Yeah.
Which tutorial?
The second last one. The one where you did login.
Okay.
Is this the login one?
Wait. This is the
Yeah, authentication authorization.
the key thingy.
Yeah,
JWT.
JWT. Yeah. And I want to look at their file structure. Did they give you like the zip file with the
Where's that?
no the zip, like like the entire
Oh, okay,
like,
okay.
the entire project, the
I
code.
got it.
Ah, okay. Wow, okay, that's how they're gonna do it. All right.
What's wrong?
Let's config. Can you open config.js? Can you just open it in Notepad? I open with code. Yeah, that's fine as well.
Where is it?
Open with code, just open
It's
with code.
not notepad.
Just open with code. No, it's okay. You already have VS Code open.
That's true.
Because I didn't want you to open a new VS Code instance. Okay. Wait, is this config.js?
Yes, it is.
Oh my.
Oh.
Oh. Oh, my eyes. My eyes.
They burn. Do they burn?
Oh, it's really like this. Oh my gosh.
It's
Wait,
really
why is that app in the config.js? I'm so confused about it. Wait, can you go back to the? Oh, they're using that to replace the server.js. Oh my
apparently.
gosh. Oh, oh, the
Oh
heresy.
god.
Alright, it's fine. That's good enough for me, thanks. Okay, I kind of get an idea what they're doing now. Oh, the heresy.
Back to my manga.
Oh, it's the otaku and the.
That's right. I have the first volume.
Oh, you bought it. Cool.
I bought it supporting the author. So I can look at the what's it? The notes every end of the season and not feel bad about not supporting.
Oh, is it
This shit,
translated
this
though?
shit. Oh, it's
Tell me it's Japanese. Oh,
Chinese.
Ikjun is
It's
it?
Chinese.
Ikjun, you better unmute yourself before I kick you out.
Hey,
What?
Never say anything. Oh, actually, I didn't hear anything because I'm on streamer mode anyway.
you didn't say anything though.
Hi,
Am I
Ikjun.
supposed to say something? You guys are like doing your things, what? No man. I
Uh,
just
But
I'm
then
I'm half.
human.
I'm trying to entertain myself here. Also. So, Ikjun, why are you here? Are you doing work? Are you having?
Yeah.
Are you using your holiday? Yeah.
yo, Chan Hao,
What?
are you looking at my stream?
Yeah. I
Okay,
can
watch
hear.
this.
What the heck just happened? What are you doing? Did you just destroy your screen?
Yo,
Oh, because you
I get it.
you clicked it
Yeah, I
so.
did.
Yeah, you click. Yeah. That's
What
cool.
the?
You want to join the stream too, Ikjun?
No.
Too bad I can hear you. Well, I'll be fine. So how has your holiday been, Ikjun? Have you been
I've been
doing the holiday
slacking.
things?
No, I've been slacking all this while until today.
That is what a holiday is supposed to be. Oh, Judging, can you show me? Okay, no, it's fine. I'll look at your screenshot.
What's up?
What is inside your
I can show you
models? What's inside your
this.
model folder?
This.
Open your db.config. This is a db config. Okay. db. Actually, you know what? Can you? Okay. Can you go to practical 8? Go to your practical 8 folder. Yeah. Go to the folder. Yeah.
These.
What is it? What's the first express? What do these folders mean?
These folders. What do they mean?
Can you go back to the old folder? Actually, not. Can you just zip? Can you zip? Can you send me this zip file?
Sure. This the Express server that you're using, then this is the front end. And this is the one that my classmate sent. But it's for tutorial and not practical.
Okay. Can you okay, this is your classmate one. Okay, never mind. Yeah, zip
So I
those
send you
two.
this?
Yeah, zip those two, and then zip the. Wait. Cancel. Cancel. Go into both of the folders, and then
Both? What do you mean?
delete the node module folder. Yeah, delete that node modules. Because if not, it's gonna take like 10 years to zip.
It's really easy.
Okay, and also can you go to can you pass me practical 7 as well?
Sure.
Yeah, I can have a look at what's going on.
I'm getting pre-CYS white from this, from what I used to do.
Pre-CYS
Oh, that was
what?
fast.
That was the you remember the full stack that I supposedly had to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Oh
happened
no.
actually? Never
Memories.
happened though.
Oh.
Man, I'm so glad I'm not sharing a screen on stream, Jetrin.
You wanna see my pictures?
No, no, no. Just send me the file so I don't get TOS. Bro, it's not even my own. It's not even my own. My own channel.
Oh yeah, that shit. That's true.
What is the Simpao? What the hell?
The shimp hound. Wait, where?
AKA
top
the
AKA.
Simpao bot
Oh.
there.
Well,
Oh, chapter
Sounds
7 as well.
I wonder why this is named here. I don't remember. So you want this, right? But I did it about audio space.
I don't know where to place this. Okay, I should just pass it here.
CEO of naming. Ah. I wonder what kind of condemning evidence I have on my laptop. What kind of pictures do I have in here? You see, this is Bernard. It is him from like 10 years ago.
He was still a
And
student.
these two are Tekken characters. And this is a Nisekoi reference. See the ribbon?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you send the chapter 7?
Yeah, I sent it already. It's called Skra.
Oh, okay.
Skra.
Man, I have to get used to. I have to stop you right there. Okay, okay.
Oh, wait, is that a profile picture of Hingwoon?
OBS. Stop.
Okay, okay, okay.
All right, you guys can talk now. I don't think the audio is going through. Okay. Well, I hope anyway.
Wait, you are streaming to YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said this from the beginning.
Wait, there was a beginning?
I mean, always has been.
Wait, it's all this. Always
I
has
want
been.
hentai.
I'm
Faster, daddy.
I am so glad I muted you guys audio. Jesus, you're gonna get me TOS, man. It's not even like YouTube TOS. It's probably the school TOS that I'm more scared of.
Jesus.
Yum yum, daddy.
I'm gonna have like server mute
So,
you soon.
wait. So, can you hear this from the stream?
Don't think you can.
No, you can't, right?
I hope you can't.
So we're safe, right?
Let me
Yeah,
let me
right.
double check. It's not even like YouTube TOS. It's probably the school TOS that I'm more scared of.
Jesus.
Daddy. Yum yum, daddy.
I'm gonna have like server mute
So,
you soon.
I submitted my
wait. So,
CA
can you hear this
for
from the
FMG,
stream?
and then I realized I
Don't
forgot to
think you
put
can.
percent size. So now I'm
you
editing
can't,
it and
right?
then
I hope you can't.
So we're safe, right?
You can.
Yeah,
Let
right.
me double check. It's not even like YouTube TOS. It's probably the school TOS that I'm more scared of.
Jesus.
Daddy. Yum yum, daddy. Can what?
I'm gonna have like server mute you soon.
I submitted my
Wait. So,
CA
can you hear
for
this from the
FMG,
stream?
and then I realized I
Don't
forgot to
think you
put
can.
percent size. So now I'm
you
editing
can't,
it and
right?
then
I hope you can't.
So we're safe, right?
You can.
Yeah, right.
Let me double check.
Guys,
It's not even
what
like
if you cut
YouTube
yourself
TOS.
and
It's
you
probably the
realize
school
that you
TOS
got
that I'm more
kicked?
scared of.
Jesus.
Daddy. Yum yum, daddy. Can what?
What if you
I'm
cut
gonna
yourself
have
and
like
realize
server
that you
mute you
are
soon.
kicked?
Oh, I just realized that it's going in a loop because of listening to myself listen to myself.
Wow.
Wow.
Wait, you can still hear it. How do I turn this? How do I like remove this?
The solution is to stop streaming. To stop streaming so you can have a
Crap.
field day here in working like a normal person. Study voice channel.
Okay,
Hey Chuan Hao, do you want to see something really gay?
No one replied to that, please.
No, okay, no, as in like legit like FED gayness.
No.
wait.
It's like okay, so we have to draw a
Wait.
bar, right? You have to draw an image of.
Okay,
Hey Chuan Hao, do you want to see something really gay?
No one replied to that, please.
No, okay, no, as in like legit like FED gayness.
No.
wait.
It's like okay, so we have to draw a
Wait.
bar, right? You have to draw an image of.
Okay,
Hey Chuan Hao, do you want to see something really gay?
No one replied to that, please.
No, okay, no, as in like legit like FED gayness.
No.
wait.
It's like okay, so we have to draw a
Wait.
bar, right? You have to draw an image of.
Okay,
Hey Chuan Hao, do you want to see something really gay?
No one replied to that, please.
No, okay, no, as in like legit like FED gayness.
No.
wait.
It's like okay, so we have to draw a
Wait.
bar, right? You have to draw an image of.
Okay,
Hey Chuan Hao, do you want to see something really gay?
okay, you know what? I resorted to just removing the audio output.
No one replied to that, please.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh my god. Why?
What?
I really hope no one watches this live stream now. Removing the audio output.
No one replied to that, please.
And then tomorrow you wake up,
Hello?
you see overnight success on your live stream.
Oh my god. Why?
What?
I really hope no one watches this live stream now.
No one replied to that, please.
And then tomorrow you wake up,
Hello?
you see overnight success on your live stream.
Oh my god. Why? Wait, no, the audio is still going through. Wait, what the heck?
No one replied to that, please.
And then tomorrow you wake up, you see.
Are you guys still there? Oh, okay, finally it's gone. Man, I really can't have it. You say some pretty incriminating stuff. Hmm. This. I like to say that Seed has in no way any affiliation to the person slash student name. Jin. He is hereby acting on his own accord and therefore represents only himself and no other organization. Okay, I think this is probably a good starting point. Yeah, okay. Okay, this is good enough. I'll be using this. Thank you. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Let me check my
How?
live stream.
How?
Hello?
It's just simple how.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Nothing
How?
works.
How?
Hello?
It's just simple how.
Why don't anything work? Why you do this? Ah. You know what? It's fine. I'll resort to the easier method of just muting Ikjun if he says something bad. It's probably easier anyway.
Something bad.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Now, aren't you just a funny man?
Oh yeah. What's that? What's that so wicked thing? I see it very
What?
interesting.
So
Are
what?
you seeing it? This one.
Your desktop, yeah.
It's I just shifted here. Alright, you don't see it anymore.
Hey, I won.
I cannot. That one I really cannot.
Gimme.
You're not supposed to be able to see that also. Your own secret key. I can think of at least 3 reasons why this is bad.
Wait, I thought you're supposed to use like environment variables or something.
Well, even if you don't, I'll explain more why. I don't get why would you not just uh, okay, actually I kinda don't want the public, so verify token. Why does this require cost? Wait, what? Huh? Wait, this is actually pretty weird. Delete? Why don't you just create a new object? What? Man, I don't know if I should like write comments in the code or I should just write like a big readme as to why this probably isn't that good. I'm assuming the token is set here, yeah. And you could use token bearer, but why would you if you're making your own custom one? Okay, chief authorization, headers, content, okay. Okay. Man, this is painful to look at. Then you require the config file here as well. Remember to always stay hydrated. I like how we're like half an hour into the live stream and I'm just still reading code. Hmm. Okay. Okay. I think I'm gonna write readme instead. This is a lot of things to write about. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Okay, good. Judging, you want me to talk through as to why the server is bad and then like, you know?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do the shorter version. Thanks.
Oh, there is assets. This probably isn't the best way to do it, but it's fine. This is why I use Linux. Okay. Do you guys want to listen to music or should I just listen to my own?
Yes.
I'll just listen to my own. Okay.
I don't want a girl who gets a car for her sweet 16, who spends a stack of dollar bills on a limousine. I want a girl who takes a bus and who wears baggy jeans, rocking Nike Airs. What the
Okay, no, I should probably write on my second screen. It didn't show the reason why it's bad on my first screen, so you guys can see it. Okay, so the first thing that's pretty bad about this, right? Dajin, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so the first thing pretty bad about this is that this file structure isn't really that descriptive. So, if a person looks at this code first, right? I mean, you're familiar with the code, but the problem is there's a server. Okay, before going into the server.js, this auth folder shouldn't be called auth. I mean, it tells me that it's authentication, like it's the files inside meant for authentication, but it doesn't tell me where in the server this authentication is being used. And, But we can kind of guess that it's probably a middleware. But I mean, if you're creating a folder just for auth, right? I mean, it's assuming that you have a lot of files used to authenticate a person. It could be
It's
model
just one.
calls and stuff like that. But you need one file. So,
Yes.
and even then, the file name itself also tells you what it's doing. It's verifying the token. So, one thing is that this file structure doesn't really tell us much. You just have to assume that, some things like, oh yeah, it's probably a middleware. It's probably also, used to authenticate the person. And if it's only one thing, then like, okay, you're kind of using a token, I guess, as well. So, problems with this back end server. So I'll just go large to small. So that's one very instant one that I can see. I'll check this back end. So. Sorry, I'm gonna have like pause for a while because I need to type everything out. Okay, crap, is it this? Image, oh yeah, I got image of. There you go. Why isn't this getting updated? The heck? Okay, there you go. It's not too descriptive. Does this? Okay, well that's a very simple one. This verify token. I guess for the second one, you have controller model and server.js and config.js, right? Config JS isn't too big of a problem. The problem is there's an app and a server.
Oh,
And usually when you're creating backends, right, you will only really differentiate this if say for example like you have multiple apps running, or like you required, you know, like somehow your backend app and your backend server to be separate, you know, entities. Which we can see here that clearly that's not really needed. I mean, like, you know, this can all be done, like all this can be done in here. Like this require statement is like literally doing nothing. Not sure why this self static also has to be here. I mean, you could make the argument that, you know, this is because you started in the root directory for the public. But then why would your app, like why would your whole server be in a subdirectory in the first place? Right, that really doesn't make much sense. Your app should be in the root directory where you have access to everything. So I'm also kind of confused. I guess this could be a workaround since they don't want to rewrite the code, but I mean, come on, it's literally just copy paste. So it could also be because there's controller code here, but that's another problem we'll get to later. Two, this would be the yeah, Ichin, you still haven't answered what you're doing now.
I don't know.
Okay. I thought you'd be like watching YouTube or like, you know, chilling. Obvious. Having access to Hopefully I can commit this time. Oh, come on. Oh my god, it finally works. Thank the heavens. Okay, so that's the server.js and app.js out of the way. The other thing is this config file. Config.js and database.config. Database config. This is kinda fine, except for the fact that these both files are named config. So the main problem that comes up, right, is that when you're searching for which config file, you might come into across both of this. And you could say that, I mean, you can tell the difference between config.js and database.config, but without context of config.js, right, you won't know that this is for the server and then this is, you know, for the database. You might assume that this config.js might also somehow lead to this config as well. And also having multiple config files is kind of so kind of confusing, because I mean, if you were to think about configuring your app, you don't configure your app like 3 different times at 3 different locations, right?
That is true.
But I can see the reason why. I mean, but for database, there's also another reason that your database is should be a separate entity from your server. But you see, you're holding your passwords in, like, you know, plain text, and above that, it's also named in the same way. So I mean, this one I think can be brought down to, you know, stylistic choice. If you see your database as a separate entity, then it's fine, but you know, you don't put it in a JS file and on top of that name it the same way. Like if this was server config, then you know, at least you can tell that it's a difference. But in this case, it's hard unless you have prior knowledge of what's going on. So if you're working on it actively. But this, I mean, we can't really assume that, because I mean, if you're working with multiple people or you're gonna like showcase the project, usually the person will know, you know, off the top of their head, there's a difference. Let's see. Oh, I mean the last one is. So yeah, plain text difference. It's a bit hard to say. Okay. Judging, you think it's better for me to just start writing the good backend, or should I just explain why this is bad first?
Alright, I'll go back in, then you can compare and contrast.
True. Then the readme is probably easier to read through.
And
Uh,
then I can steal it too. Because I don't really know what's the good way to do it yet.
you can steal my old one. I mean, my old Snapcell PD assignment is up. So, but
Yes.
that isn't really too. Yeah, it's up. It's always been up. I can show you on the live stream. Right here. It's even pinned on my profile.
Oh. Nice.
I also like sort of go through why some of this isn't too good, like this file and this file, and some of the structures here. But yeah, there's a few things that's not needed when I'm looking back when I did this assignment. Like some things were overkill for the crap. Okay, probably. Okay. Oh, oops. What the heck did I just close? I guess other than that, there's actually not much else to fault this in. I mean, the file structure is pretty bad, but that's already been gone through. I guess I'll probably skip writing the rest since it's not really too important. Another one, this config, we don't create connections because it's a pain in the ass handling connection by connection. We usually just use a pool. There's only certain rare instances where we would be doing this, and even then, you kind of need to know what you're doing as well. User.js, why is this code so long? Yeah, you have to connect each time and then disconnect, and then you have multiple callbacks. It's not really a thing that you will be doing on the regular. Yeah, callback now. So should we probably be using multi-line comments? This is a bit hard to read. You also don't really log. Yeah, I guess this is also another mistake that I used to do. You don't really log everything that you're doing in the backend server. Like you log it once and then you remove it because if you have too many logs, it kind of clogs up the server. I mean, like you won't. It's kind of hard to tell after a while which log is coming from where, and it makes it hard to debug. Because if you only have one log, then you know that for a fact that it's coming from one place. But I guess maybe for now, you can just leave it in. Because it's kind of hard. I know it's kind of hard to see it sometimes. But yeah. Well, the other thing is I also don't have SQL set up on this system. I have MSS. I got Microsoft SQL Server, but not SQL. And I also need to have it set up in Ubuntu. Can I connect to it? Is that even possible? You know, I'm just going to log in tonight. Let's see what time I sleep today. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, but I think it's enough going through why this code is bad. Just retiring to start writing some good code. Oh, MySQL server. Should I go balls to the wall and then only use like MySQL from the command line?
What?
Don't even use a SQL bench.
It sounds like so much better.
Okay. Well, this loads. Yeah, also an endorsement. I am no way saying that this is the definite way of doing stuff. I'm just saying this is my opinion. And if you agree, you can take it.
Nice.
Almost an hour. Well, that's cool. Alright, you want to keep it doing login, so PMI on this stuff. I guess I'm treating this directory as like the root directory of your entire backend project or server. So I'll just note one. Yeah. I'll do course just because. Okay, you probably need it on anyway. It's called JWT, right? Or is it like JWT JSON or something? Crap. Let me double check. Oh, JSON web token. NPMI. Where's bcrypt? Pretty sure this is the correct one. No, GOAP, okay. It should be fine. Okay, good, nice. Bcrypt JYT pm install UUID. What else would you need in your server? Cookie password. Okay, well, I guess this is just a general rule that I kind of follow. I guess this really isn't too much of a, how to describe it. Yeah, I guess it's just something I follow. For projects, right, the root directory should be as clean as possible, at least in my philosophy. Mainly because if you look at projects on GitHub, right, it's kind of hard to tell if you have a bunch of stuff lying around, what exactly is going on. Anything that creates more than like one file, or even anything that has more than one file and should be grouped with other stuff should just be by itself. That's why this only has readme, and then everything else is in a folder. Yeah, Jetrin.
Makes sense.
Another thing I'll be using is .env environment package and to load environment variables. This is better because it explicitly has a different file type, which is so this is another thing that will probably be in your root directory. You know, besides your git ignore, which is environment, it's pretty easy to see that it's different. Oh, my OBS disconnected. That shouldn't be a problem. It's back anyway. And for this, there's no real way around it because you can't really place them in the folder because they need to be in the root directory so that your entire application can access them. So yeah, there's no going around it that way. So well, especially for this server, so I process return then error code 1. Oh right, because WSL can't open on my MySQL server. Well, this is why Windows is so amazing. Man, do I have to fake? Oh no, I know what I can do. Postgres SQL to the rescue. I probably shouldn't be opening this anywhere near here. Man, do I want to go through all the effort just to? Hmm. Huh. Well, you know what? I guess we're doing it since I'm here anyway. Alright, I will go to I will go to 3:30 and then I will go to sleep. So the name for this will be THP. Huh, oh. I guess that's just that then.
Okay.
Server dip quality. So the other thing you also do is you would ignore the end file because you never upload this to GitHub or your version control. You usually have a sample that you upload so that people can also, you know, look at the sample and replicate it. And surprise, surprise, we usually just call that with a dot sample at the back. So this is the file we upload. So it's very simple to use the .env file. You just write your key equals to string on the right, and then to access it from any JS, you just do process. Oh, you have to require it first. So another reason why we use this .env files, right, is because I just need to call this once, and then this attaches to my runtime so-called object, which is process.env, and then you know everything else that's in this env file will be available everywhere. So if you know that our application starts from one file, right? If you put this all the way at the top, and it attaches to runtime, you know everything else that runs afterwards will have access to the environment variables. So you really don't have to worry about does like this file have access. It will have access because you run it from the top. Then secondly, all your environment variables are at one place, so you can configure everything at once. You don't have to keep searching around. It's like, oh, it's my database, you know, name over here, or is my port number set over there. It's just all at one place. So well, I guess this might seem like a minor point, but it basically avoids mistakes. Sometimes you connect to the wrong database, start your server, then you might crash, your production database. Or like you set the wrong port and you're like, why doesn't my request send? So if it's all at one place, you can see it. So there's that. So I should replace my other sensitive information, like the database. Actually not, it's fine, it can be on stream. It's not gonna, it's a free service anyway. You guys also need to. You guys also need to see this. So PG URL. So I'm going to be using a Postgres, well, a free Postgres database to be hosting everything. Actually, if that's the case, I need to install PG. Which almost acts like the same way as your MySQL anyway, so it's not like there's much of a difference. Port, what else do I need to put here? Ah, my secret, yeah. I don't know. Usually I just put cats. Because it's funny. Salt rounds, I guess. This usually isn't too sensitive. Oh, the heck. That's weird. Okay. Okay, I guess it's installed, even though it says it's not. It's fine. So rounds 13, that's for bcrypt. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. Is there anything else that... I guess I'll add it in as I go along the way. So, like I said, main server / root file to run. So we place it right at the top, so we load our environment variables. So to check, we can just do console.log process.env, and we can see that everything is okay. There are a lot more stuff than supposed to be showing us there. So if I do this .port, you can see 3000 shows up. So okay. So after that, we will create an Express server. Okay, so here's the second part where I improve on the original design. They split the server and app up, right? I'm gonna put this together because number one, it needs to be in the root directory to run everything. Second to that, yeah, I'll be abstracting the controllers, middleware, and models to their own folders. So why I do this is pretty simple, is because the controller code can get quite a bit, and you need the app object to run everything. But the other reason why I put everything in one main folder is because when you look at the app or the server folder, you want to see how the server is created, right? That's like the overarching what would you call it? The overarching server code that's running. Then you also want to see like in which order middlewares are loaded to see like, okay, if there's an error, is it because I'm loading one file before the other before you like dig down and then try and find where the bug might be. So this gives you a big overview, basically. So in line with that, I put everything in the same file, so you know, you try to look. You shouldn't be looking in two files to get an overview.
Oh.
That's how I feel.
Gosh.
So let me go make the rest of them. Controllers. And modem. Okay, so for example's sake, I'm only gonna have like one controller. But usually you should also, you know, how's it? Separate your controllers into whatever like system that you think is correct. So if you want to split by users, then like listings or something, that's fine as long as you know it's consistent and it makes sense and all the APIs are in the same file. You can also do it by file like path. If like everything in slash listings is like in the same file, that's also fine. Or if you have too many APIs, you know, slash, you can like, you know, if there's like slash listing slash yeah, just a suggestion. Man, OBS really is not
Passing away.
agreeing with me today. So for simplicity's sake, I will just do user.js. And oh wait, this is I'm breaking my own rules here. User controller.js. And I should have one for user, I should have one for okay, no, I don't have anything. Oh, in your example, I think in the backend module you guys are using like listings or something. So you have listings. Oh man, it's way too late at night. Listings controller.js. Yeah, okay, there you go. So let's say you have both of these, right? So the reason why there's index.js, so I'll get to the reason why I'll talk about why I didn't name controller. I name it users controller not because like you can't tell that this file is already in the controllers folder, but it's because let's say in your model, right? You also want to like separate the model calls into users and listings. If I were to just name it users here, .js again, I mean in the file structure you can tell that this users.js belongs to the model. But if you open this file side by side, right, you can't tell the difference between users and users this and users that. And also when you're reading the code, when you tell someone open the users folder, they're like users in model, but like all of them are users. Even if you try and search it, it will show up as the same thing, and it's hard to read. So, oh, in my opinion, it's just easier to just name it controller, so you can be like, ah, yes, I want the user controller, right? Or like user model. Users model.js. Yep. So you know that this is the model, the user's model file and not the user controller file. Okay, now that's out of the way. So the other reason why I have an index.js, and this will be the same thing for all these folders, is because it's a pain in the ass to, you know, individually require each of this one by one, right? I mean, you know, if you're creating a controller, why require that one by one? Like you should, ideally there should be some way to require this entire file because you want, you know, all of this to be there anyway. right? You just want to be when you want to import your model, you don't import like you don't think about wait which model am I using for this API? Is it just the user's model? Is it just the listings model? So with the index.js, this is why the index.js comes in. This is like a linking file where it will import the other modules, the other JavaScript files in the folder for you. So you just have to import this index.js as well. So how it will look like is something like this. So the way I usually write it is I just name the main object that's containing everything, all the JavaScript code. That's the name of the file. And I just export it. I'll use .exports. Right. And since this is a controller, the main way we want our controller to work is basically with the app, because it's app.get and then app.post to create stuff. What will happen is we basically just want some way to like we call a function with the app, and then after that we just go app.get, then it should run like this sequence of codes, so you can create all the endpoints. I'm not gonna be commenting this too heavily because I think you guys can read. This is a live stream for this, so yeah. I think I'll be going a bit slower this time because I have to write the code while I talk. But if I was doing the second one where I just talk about the code, it'd probably be much faster. So yeah. So you can see how like I can basically require everything I need here. This thing's controller. Yep. And then all I need to do, right, to use both of this is to just pass it in. So it's kind of like wrapping them in functions, but I mean, hey, it's easier to look at this code and see what's going on than like try to read all of this and this condensed together. So like if you're in app.js and you were tracing stuff, you'd be like, okay, add controllers, right? Where I'd just be like, okay, controllers, just require the index file, and then you just like pass it in, right? Have the controller in it, and I'd be like, okay, this is where the controllers goes. Apparently it's calling this object with an init function. So if I look at this folder, you can see that this init is just calling these two functions with the init. So if you look at this folder, we're like, okay, it's executing the code here with the app. And you can just jump straight to this to understand that, because you can see the app here as well. If naming convention. So yeah, I'll just finish this out so you can actually listen to the dem server. So another pro tip, we usually name our constants in all caps, so we know the difference between them and variables. And also, I'm doing this because it's hard to write process.m.plot every time I want to use it. So since I already said it once, I can just keep using it again and again. this ever have an error? I don't know. So if I was to add the Node 1 script here to start the server. Ah, okay, yeah, because this is not created. So if I go back here, since this is not created yet, yeah, so you can see that the server is listening fine. So now, if you were to add an API here, let's say we do a create page, right? Oh, I should probably add a test API just in case, so you can see what's going on. So now the thing is, if you want to add a test API, where do we put it? Like there's things users, it's not really in any of the controller files, right? We actually put it in index.js because this way we know that since it's only one specific API endpoint, and since we know that it's really obvious that it's for testing, if you put it here, we can can immediately see that. It also makes sense to put it here though, because since it doesn't really belong to any of the other controllers, it wouldn't make sense to put it in any of them. And if you put it in the root one, when you look at this file, when you look at the set of controllers, you can also see the tests. You will immediately see the test here as well. Yeah, then it'll be test received. This was the restart. So if you were to go to localhost 3000 /test, you can see that we received the test. So our code is working as expected. So now to the fun part where we actually start creating stuff. So if you have an app.post, man, I really should install Postman, huh? Yeah, I don't have Postman on here. Okay, anyway, so you may send a post request to say /user/create. Actually, no, just do /user. We can create a user here. So usually there'll be validation, but I think I'll probably just skip that because I don't think do you guys need to do validation, Jachin?
For what? Login.
Yeah, data.
I don't think so.
I think so, right? Okay, that should be fine. Yeah, if you don't need it, then
Yeah.
So you could do validation, inside your post request, but usually we do it at the API level, so you reject requests that doesn't fall within our boundaries. Wait, no. There you go. Man, if you know Mo Night Owl, why the heck would you give me the light team?
Yeah.
God.
I get what you mean. I haven't seen Night Theme since the start of the semester.
And everyone downloaded it for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this post request, I think we'll probably just take a username and password. So, well, first things first, you want to be able to see if you can get the username and password. So, okay, so here's the second thing that comes in handy. If you want to get form data, right, we will need to add the middleware for it. And because everything is in this app server, we know that we have to add the middleware before we add the controllers. If not, we can't pass it properly. So adding post data. So that's just as simple as JSON. Yeah. Yep, just as simple as that. So just for testing once, we can just add its collection. There you go. Okay. Add user. Man, I am not used to this. Okay. So we add the body, probably this one. You have username as ABC, password as ABC. So we send this request, we can see that yes, we have received this fork successfully, but we haven't sent anything back. So this is just gonna be stuck until it times out. Send this again, yep, it's sent successfully. So now we need to create the model, which is also fun. So my mistake in my previous backend server was that I placed my scripts files just in the root directory, which I don't think is really too good. So this time, surprise surprise, I'm just gonna make a script. I'm just gonna make a script folder and place it there. So wait, no, it's edit.sql. What am I doing? Right, it's a SQL file. Yep. Wait, do I already have database? This is Postgres. Drop table if exist. The user ID is varchar. Wait, I still have to do bcrypt with this. Oh no. So I'm gonna have to run this on the database side. Nice, alright. Query's done. Yep, I have the database with that name. Okay, that's good. So now onto the models. Oh, thank you. Pass me. You've already created them. So for this is a bit different. So because we know our models is being imported by the APIs by themselves, right? We kind of want to package it all together. So we don't really want a hierarchy of constant requires, because we know that at least for the controller side, right? Controller like the listings controller needs to be imported by the index, then imported by the app.js. So if app.js doesn't work, basically the whole thing doesn't work. So we kind of want to avoid that for our model. But luckily enough, because we're using PG, I mean if you're using MySQL, right? It kind of already has its own code, so it doesn't really rely on the server. The only thing that has to happen before you require any of the model code is that the environment variables must be loaded. So that's where knowing when your code starts from is very important. This is the general flow of it. So another thing you will realize that as we're going through this user's model part, right? Because at least for the controller, we just run a function and then everything else runs. But for this, we want to export functions that other people, like other code, can use. So that's why, at least for this, there'll be a much greater hierarchy in terms of what are the things you need to import. Then as for the other stuff, this is usually how I write my SQL code. So I include the library. Wait, hold up. Let me go read the documentation again. Oh right, this is not how you require it. This is how you require it. Okay. So looking at the documentation, it looks something like this. I think I'll probably stop once I get the user up and running.
Yes.
Is this okay so far?
Yep.
Is this like still not like there yet?
I mean, makes a lot more sense than my practicals,
At least you know why sometimes why certain code has to go where, rather than just banging your head against the practical the teacher gives it to you. I don't know. I kind of feel like this is kind of going quite slowly because you guys already have done this before, but then
It's like we doing it, but with better foundation.
action string. So this is where the environment variable comes in, because you don't want to just willy-nilly give out this kind of information to anyone. So I put it in this here, so we know that okay, we can check that this is the string that is set properly, and we can just look here like okay, yeah, we know that our URL is set properly even though we haven't even looked at where it's being set.
Nice.
So in your previous example where you have to create, I think it's open.
Okay.
Yeah, when you have to create each connection one by one. With the pool, you don't have to worry about that. You can just do pool.query, right? And then you can just put your query string here, and then it will just work. Because it handles it for you anyway. Which is how usually it's done, no? Because the query takes time, and if you handle each connection one by one, you would have to like, figure out which connection you want to run first, and that kind of thing. And then you have to close the connection after every time as well. With this, you can just keep calling, and then it will just handle that for you. So yeah. So the thing is that now there's a new problem where how do we get this object into here so that we can use the pool here, right? Rather than writing all the code in this big ass model. And well, the way that I'm gonna do it is using this init function. I set this dot pool to pool. Right, so when I require it, when I run this piece of code, this dot pool gets set. So later on in any of the functions, like get users, get users, I can just use this dot pool dot query, and this will just work. So yeah, and then I also can set users to be users model, and then let's say in app.j, let's say in like a controller, right? Say this controller, I require like the database, so I need to make database calls in the controller. I can just do this. I can require it with just index, and then if I do model.users, so this is like renaming it because like in this case when we're writing code, we can see that model, like the users belongs to model, so there's no need for us to rewrite users model again. So in this case we can just rename it to users. So this dot users will link back to here, which links back to here, which links back to this file, which you can already guess if you have seen the file structure, you can guess this models.users is in this file anyway to begin with. So like the code and the file names kind of like talk to each other. So like if you see enough code, you can already guess like where this code comes from. So yeah. So anyway, sidetracked. We don't need get users, we need to create users. So we need a username. And password. So here comes the third roadblock. Where do you place your generation of the user IDs? Encrypting and decrypting passwords. Yeah. If you think about it, you really shouldn't be with the model, because all the model should do, right, is to talk between your server and your database. If it also handles like encrypting and decrypting, that's like another layer of like code that you have to like go dig and find, where is it being used and stuff like that. So there's a few ways you can solve this. The way that I did it back then, and I kind of still do now, is I can get my code. The way I used to do it is I have this utils folder that basically contains all the utilities that are required. So these can be thought of like utilities or extra code that requires that for your server to run, like encrypting, decrypting, or generating tokens. This is fine, but do take note that if creating a token requires more than one file, or like if generating the hash by itself is like a whole separate like program, it's probably better to like have folders of it. But you can see here, since the code is very small, you can kind of compress it into just one file, and it's still not too bad. But yeah, anyway, utilities folder shouldn't be too big anyway if it's not um part of your server, like what your server does. So there's also another way where you can do it where if your server functions basically require like it's like its own like backend engine by itself. Like if you're doing analysis or if your whole backend is to just like I don't know take in data and then do something with it, then you might have like an entire like engine folder that has like multitude. It's like its own project by itself, basically. Then you just export the engine as like just one line of code because this abstraction allows you to it's very clear like where code like which part like if something does something where their code can be found, right? Because you can see that if it's controller, the controller should just be controlling how the API handles requests. It shouldn't be like handling the logic to talk to the database, or it should be handling like how to process the data that comes in. That job is done by some other part of your code. So I mean it's a bit hard to see now since your code is still relatively small, but if you end up like building thousands and thousands of code, you don't really have the time or luxury to just look at the entire project as a whole to like see, okay, yeah, this code is the one that's being called when this happens. So yeah, especially if you have like multiple files and like you have multiple things that have to run. I feel like your database calls and your like authentication is probably like quite a big feat already. So it's just abstraction when needed though. So like but then there's another thing where like if there's no need to create an entire folder just for like one file, then there's probably a better way to like structure your code in a way that it makes more sense. So. Man, this is gonna be quite a pain in the ass too. Hmm. Huh. I think after this I'll probably go into promises, which is also quite a big of a thing to do. I think I'll probably stop here for today.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't be typing this here.